poor planning. I mean, the rule of unintended consequences seems to reign supreme in that. And then flash forward, if you will, several years forward. Recently in Boston history, there was another event that was a great predictor of this, and of course, the Democratic National Convention was held in Boston just a few years ago. And how exactly did that turn out?
You know, the DNC is an interesting comparison. So it certainly had some of the same issues that an Olympics would in terms of security and logistics and needing to shut down parts of the city in order to, put on this event for folks that are coming from the outside. But what the DNC didn't require is it didn't require concrete, it didn't require steel, it didn't require building new venues that were going to become white elephants afterwards. And so if you think about the Olympics, the costs are maybe 100 times or more the cost of putting on a DNC, because you've got to build a stadium, you've got to build an Olympic Village, you've got to build a media center, all these things that we don't need for the long term, but that we would need for this short-term event. So the price really skyrockets when you talk about an Olympics.
Well, has there been any discussion? Well, I mean, all this is taking place behind closed doors, but I would assume that, to Pat's point about being part of a regional economy, Boston already has, especially with the universities in and around Boston, a pretty vibrant infrastructure for sporting events, to say the least. But, it's these kind of secondary and tertiary support buildings and welcome centers and things like that you're saying are the true cost, and again, don't pan out in the long run.
Yeah, and, the four most expensive venues for an Olympics in Boston would all have to be built from scratch. So that's the stadium, the Olympic Village, the Aquatic Center, and the Velodrome. We do not have Olympic-sized facilities for any of those things. And so, yeah, you can talk about having, judo or fencing at the convention center, which is already built. But the stuff that's really expensive is all stuff you'd have to build on, build it new, basically.
Right.
So, the boosters talk about leveraging the facilities that are already in place, but the fact is that this is really just a monstrous construction project.
Right. Now, one of the things that's been thrown out, and again, what's remarkable about this is the size and scope of the project, as you've rightly pointed out, seems to be being presented, and forgive me because I know you're more on the Democratic side of the aisle maybe than I as a libertarian, but almost Pelosi-like in the notion of that you'll have to go to this Olympics before you'll see what's in this Olympics. Yeah. So forgive me that. But now all of a sudden you've got these issues being thrown out willy-nilly. They talk about a temporary stadium, and I guess one of the quirks in Olympic financing is that you're allowed to use, incoming revenues if in fact it's for the construction of a quote-unquote temporary. Now, I mean, that's the type of fodder that would be ideal for some level of civic engagement, the type of open community meetings that are supposed to be a part of this. Where do you guys stand on that?
Let's talk about the temporary stadium that they're proposing. So they're proposing it for a location in Boston called Wydett Circle, and that's probably a place that very few of your listeners have been to. I've never even been there myself, but it's the home of something called the New Boston Food Market, which is a cooperative of food wholesalers that employ 700 people in year-round, full-time, good jobs. And they're the type of companies that make sure that your local restaurant or your local store have, the food to serve you a meal or make sure that you have your groceries. No,
and I'm actually familiar with it. This has been promoted successfully as an alternative to the older, seedier vegetable market, where you've got, local farming, local produce, local supply being put right into the center of Boston. So it's been very successful, right?
Yep. So it's a thriving business. They do, as a cooperative, they do more than $1 billion a year in business. And again, it's infrastructure, right? It's the stuff that makes our city and our region work. But the current plan for Boston 2024 is to take that property by eminent domain, either through eminent domain granted to Boston 2024 or through an act of the city, to then bulldoze all of those businesses, then to build this temporary 60,000 person stadium that would last for 3 to 6 weeks, then to bulldoze the stadium. And then it's not clear what would happen afterwards. Now, that plan sounds great if you're in the bulldozer business, but does that really sound like the sort of long-term planning and infrastructure development?
I have to say, yeah, I mean, I'm a member of the Green Party, for God's sake, and waste is a big issue. You don't build a brand new building and then bulldoze it. I mean, that's asinine.
Right. I mean, the reason that they're doing it is that they want to be able to pat themselves on the back and say, we had no white elephants. There's no decaying empty venues. But, I mean, if you build a 60,000 person stadium and then you tear it down afterward, I guess you don't have a white elephant, but, it was still not the best fiscal decision or the best decision from an environmental perspective.
And it ultimately comes down to the real issue. As a libertarian talk show, you're picking winners and losers. The winners clearly are the Suffolk Constructions of the world, the Citizens Bank. I listened in horror. I work some odd hours, so I listened to one of the public radio stations that takes news media overnight from BBC. And as I listened during the London Olympics, it struck me that you had an event that was designed for the few and paid for by the many and ultimately supported by a society. It just, you had this incredible boosterism by the local media, who usually just falls right in line with this type of stuff. I give a lot of credit, by the way, to the Boston Globe and the Boston Herald, but particularly the Globe, for some really objective reporting and really some on-spot analysis of sort of the political shenanigans going on here. But we're all supposed to be caught up in rapture at the whole notion of this international event being taking place, while at the same time, the Democratic Convention was a direct predictor of the impact on local businesses. So if you're a connected major player, you get the sponsorships, you get the spotlight, you get the red carpet events, you get the glow, you get the halo effect. But what if you're just the local guy who's built up a wholesale food business in this district, or if you're the local guy who owns a deli downtown who's shut down for a couple of weeks?
I think that's exactly right, Pat. There are winners and losers, and the folks that are going to win here are the folks that have the connections and that have those relationships and are in those closed-door meetings, and the folks that are going to lose are the ones that are not.
Right. Tell us a little bit about where we can find and where we can participate in the debate, and what constructive advice do you have for the independent businessmen and the city? How can they get involved? Give us a snapshot.
Sure. Well, the easiest thing to do is go to our website, which is nobostonolympics.org. We've got a lot of good information on there about the history of past Olympics. We've got a page that sort of deconstructs the various arguments that Boston 2024 is making and shows that what they're saying is really just not consistent with the reality on the ground. So we'd encourage people to go there. I mean, I think beyond that, this is something that is going to need to be decided at the entire statewide level, either through some sort of legislative process or through a ballot initiative. And so we would encourage people to talk to their local elected leaders, talk to their state leaders and legislators to say, this is just not a priority for me. I elected you to improve our roads and bridges or to improve our schools or build more parks. I didn't elect you to have a 3-week event in the year 2024 that's going to benefit, the few at the expense of the many.
There was a remarkable, in closing, there was a remarkable debate that's currently on Boston.com. We hope to hot link it to our site to get it out to folks, where at your organization's urging, the only really civic discussion was this debate. And just tell me, I guess, if you will, the level and the depth of the involvement of your opponent, if you will, in terms of the minutia of the proposal. How well was she able to elaborate on that?
Well, we were pretty surprised when she admitted about halfway through the debate that she had not read the bid herself. She had only read parts of it. So it was sort of a jaw-dropping moment for us and for anyone in the audience there. And you brought up the Nancy Pelosi thing, and I am a good Democrat, but you're right. It had sort of flashbacks to that because it's just incredible that this bid has been submitted. It's probably, we think, at least 80, maybe 100, 200 pages, with these detailed plans for what's going to happen in the city in 2024, and even the advocates for this plan have not read it themselves. Not to mention, the folks that would ultimately be paying for it, which are the taxpayers.
Pat, I just want to jump in here and say that this is like the most ridiculous use of any politician's time or money. Like you said, we want you to go there and get things done. This is not a priority for us, and I think it just shows how out of touch most of the muckety-mucks actually are with the pulse of the people.
Is there any opportunity? Now, Massachusetts has a much more progressive attitude towards citizens' voting rights on individual issues, and we saw that in this past election on everything from casino gambling to the bottle law. Is there any opportunity for you folks to put on the ballot some type of discussion of this?
Yeah, we've been exploring that, and we haven't made any final decisions there, but it's obviously a tool in the toolbox. We think that we would do very well there. The polling that has come out and been released publicly has shown that people are very skeptical of this idea that it does not have broad support to bring the Olympics to Boston. And if you're a guy that lives in Springfield, or a woman who lives in Pepperell, or Worcester County somewhere, I mean, is this really what you want your taxpayer dollars to go to pay for essentially a 3-week party for the international elite in Boston? Well, you're worried about, whether the roof at your kid's school leaks, or whether the roads that you drive every day are safe.
Well,
so we think we would do very well if we did bring it to a ballot.
Well, Chris, you nailed it. Chris Dempsey from NoBostonOlympics.org. They're on Twitter. They're on Facebook. We hope you'll keep us posted. Please send us press releases. Please keep us involved. We want to thank you for being on the show. We wish you the best of luck. If it's any predictor to your success, we were able to crush casinos on a local level here in this last election. A lot of the same issues, a lot of the same public outrage, a lot of the same behind-the-scenery work. But ultimately, folks won overall. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Chris. Have a nice holiday.
You're in touch, and thanks very much for the invite today.
And you're listening to Coalition Radio. We'll be back in just a moment. CoalitionRadio.us, Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, on the mighty Twitter, Coalition_Radio. Stay tuned. Mike Stenhouse for the Rhode Island Center of Freedom and Prosperity is going to deconstruct Roadmap Rhode Island for us, and he's going to answer the eternal question, where do we go from here? Thanks for listening. We'll be right back.
Service Matters is a weekly one-hour show that reaches out to the entire community. Hosted by Rotarians Dave Clifton and Rona Mann, Service Matters features guests who make time to give service above self. The good work performed by service organizations throughout southern New England will be highlighted with on-air guests from Scouts to Lions to church groups to veterans and more. Interested in giving back, paying it forward, or meeting folks who do? Listen to Service Matters every Friday from 3 to 4 p.m. on AM 790 Talkin' Business. Underwritten by Amica Insurance, believing first and foremost in community service. The Brown men's basketball team is back in action Sunday, December 28th, as the Bears host the Pioneers of Sacred Heart at the Pizzatola Center.
Speed at the free throw line, bounce past Amaya for the jam.
Game time is 2 p.m., and you can get your tickets now by calling the Brown Ticket Office at 863-2773 or online at brownbears.com. Don't miss the Bears versus Sacred Heart Sunday, December 28th at the Pits. Call 863-2773 or go to brownbears.com. Go Bruno.
Hi, this is Amy from Moriarty's Fence, the Invisible Fence brand pet safety experts. I have great news about multi-pet technology for dogs and cats sharing homes. You can create different boundaries for different pets, inside and out, for a stress-free and happy pet environment exclusively available from Moriarty's Fence. Call 800-225-0808 for a free design and pet behavior evaluation visit, or schedule online at moriartysfence.com. We have outdoor containment solutions as low as $799. At Moriarty's Fence, we work hard so you can rest easy knowing your pet is safe at home.
But it just makes sense. It's the fence that makes sense. Get the invisible fence.
Moriarty's Fence, 800-225-0808, keeping pets safe since 1986. Moriarty's Fence reminds you to support your local shelter, adopt, volunteer, donate.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. And then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-700-5961. That's 1-800-700-5961. Again, 1-800-700-5961. Call now.
Investing in bonds involves risk, including the possible loss of principal. Income may be subject to state, local, or federal alternative minimum tax. When interest rates rise, prices will fall. When interest rates fall, prices will rise.
I'm at a place in my life where I need investment income. That's why I invest in tax-free municipal bonds. I love the income they provide. Income that's federally tax-free. At this point, that's exactly the kind of income I need.
Tax-free municipal bonds can serve as the cornerstone for a conservative portfolio. They offer income that's tax-free. Henyon & Walsh is a leading expert in tax-free municipal bonds. We're committed to